Hello everybody, let's continue to learn modern JavaScript. In this session, let's take a look at destructuring assignment. So destructuring assignment is a special syntax. It allows us to unpack arrays or objects into a bunch of variables. Let's see on the left, if we have an array of variables, then on the right, we need set array values. Similarly, if we put object, the curly brace with variables, then on the right we need to put objects as well. So let's take a look at examples. This one we have an array, and we have an array of variables on the left. Then by doing this, we are going to set items of array into the variables separately. And it's the same like this one. We have array return from this split method. Then we are going to set this array variables on the left. So the destructuring assignment means something like this. We have this array and we set element one by one, and we can ignore some elements by put commas in front of the variable. For example, this case we want to get the third element, then we put 2 commas in front of this title. And for strings or set, which the data structure has iterable feature, it works as well for the array. For example, here. So after we use this line, we will get 3 variables assigned with 3 strings separately. And for this one, we get 3 integers assigned to these 3 variables separately. Let's take a look at this one. We have one user object, and in this array we set 2 attributes, 2 properties for this user object. And on the right, it's an array returned by this split method. So it works as well. Let's take a look at this part. So we have this user object. We can use key value and this array form to retrieve the data from the entry of this object. The map itself has this entries method. Yeah, of course it will work. Let's take a look at this one. This one is demonstrating the rest object. So for this array, we have a variable name1, name2, and also have a rest object inside. So for this line, it's going to assign the first element to name1, second element to name2. The rest of the elements will go into this rest object. So at the last, rest.length is 2. The rest object contains these 2 elements. Let's take a look at the default values. If we set the variables with an empty array, so the variable at the end will have undefined value inside, and this one we can specify the default value by equal to some value here. And for this case, we have 1 item in this array, but we have 2 variables inside the left array. Then the first variable will be set by the first element of the array, and the second will use the default value. And for the default value, it accepts the function, the method as well. For this case, we are going to use a dialog to ask user to provide the value for the default value. So for this case, we have 1 element from the array as well. We have 2 variables, and for the second variable, we will see a dialog. It will ask the user to input a name, a surname for this surname variable. Let's take a look at the object destructuring. So we have this object, and on the left we use the object as well. We put the same names for the variables, comparing to the properties of this object. So we are achieving the similar result. So let's take a look at this one. We have this title and height and width. They are not in the same order like on the left. It still works. It will go to match the variable with the same name. Let's take a look at this one. And this one, we can provide an alias name for the left variable. So for this one, width, we provide an alias name W. Height, we provide an alias name height H. So it also works. Let's take a look at the default values here. Similarly, we use this form to provide the default values for left object variable groups. And here we only have title property under this options object. So the width and height will use the default values. Let's take a look at this one. We have the options, we have the title property inside, and we have this left object variables, and the option will provide the title for the title variable, and for the width variable we are going to use the input value from this prompt dialog. Let's take a look at this one. So here we are using the default values and also using the alias together, so it works as well. So let's take a look at this one. We have these options with three properties: title, height, and width. So on the left we have the title and rest object. So the title will be set by the title property from the options, and the rest object will contain all the rest properties from these options. So if we call rest.height, we will get the value from this height property of options, and the rest.width also contains the value from the width property of this option object. So let's take a look at this part. This part is very interesting. We have a left object variable group here, and on the right we have an object as well. For this line it will not work because we define these variables separately like this. In this case, in order to make it work, we have to put a brace on the left and the right to include them. Then the JavaScript engine will know we are going to do destructuring for the object. So let's take a look at nested destructuring. We have option object here. We also have a size object. So after we set the options object to this left object with the size object inside, the width and height also works. Item 1, item 2 also works. So let's take a look at this one. So we have this left size object and get from the options. So this size will have the value from this size property of this object options object. So if we use the size dot width to get the value and size dot height to get the value, it will work. So let's take a look at some smart function parameter forms. So we can, in JavaScript, we can do something like this to provide the default values for the parameters. And when we call them, so we can do something like this, but it looks like very messy. So we can do it more concise like this. We have one object, options, contains the title items. And when we create this function, we just pass an object parameter here. So inside this parameter is an object. We have a title, width, height, and items. So when we call it, we just call show menu options. It's much simpler and more concise comparing to this method of doing things. So let's take a look at this one, the more complex destructuring here. So we have this options object with title items, and we have show menu method, which contains an object with the title, with height. Each of them has the alias name and items. Inside we have item 1 and item 2. So after we do that and call options separately, they will assign that object into this parameter object here. And let's take a look at this part. So we can make it even simpler by setting the default value like this. So we created this function, and this parameter object has the title with the default value, and width and height with the default values as well. And we set the default equal this empty object. When we call it, it's empty one. We don't provide anything, so it will have this title with height naturally. So this one will looks simpler and clearer. So that's all for this session. Thanks for watching. See you next time.